Let's welcome in former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins, who was in attendance at the president's rally on Saturday. Congressman, great to see you. I guess we had that. That's actually the old one from a while back. There was no rally on Saturday, of course, but great to see you. Former Congressman Doug Collins. I would imagine that you are feeling somewhat relieved, some mixed emotions here as well. Fortunately for your sake, the writers of this reality show have not included you in the sequel to the impeachment of President Trump. How are you feeling about that, Doug?
No, I'm sad. I'm sad for our country. I mean, from last week and everything going on, the Democrats doing exactly again in impeachment what they did, frankly, in the first one, and that was a judgment to do something, even if they had to break rules, bend rules, and not follow procedures. And we've heard from many of them, Jonathan Turley, from so many people who've actually talked about the fact that if you're using impeachment in this way, if you're using it in a sense of where you believe that you can't follow the procedures, you can't use it as the ultimate check by Congress against the administrative body, you feel like you've got to go ahead and do it, then you really have to question where you're at here. Look, the emotions run high, everything is on the table, but we've got to actually make sure that when the Democrats, especially in this case, and then as it goes to the trial in the Senate, where is the process here? This is not a country in which you go just simply from an accusation to a verdict. And I think that's the concern that I have here. It's been an interesting process, unfortunately, to watch.
Well, we're all trying to kind of read between the lines from Mitch McConnell's statement and what Kevin McCarthy is going to do and what he's saying now and what Liz Cheney was up to. You know, it looks like now the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he would not support these kind of growing calls to primary Liz Cheney or kick her out of her post as the GOP conference chair. You know, what can you tell us, having been so obviously involved with a lot of these players here, about what it's going to be like for the GOP caucus to work together, considering how much division apparently exists?
It's going to be tough. I mean, I've talked to a lot of members over the last few days, and they're very, some of them are very upset at Liz. They're upset at Cheney of being in leadership. But also, in defense of Liz, she made her position very clear early on. And as a vote of conscience, that's what she intended to do. And I believe she'll address those in the conference who are frustrated from her leadership position, taking the role that she did. But also, the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy's got to also understand there's a lot of the conference as well, very frustrated with what has went on and the sort of the lack of focus that has been going on here in this new Congress. So what they're going to have, hopefully they'll get together. I think Kevin is respecting Liz Cheney's right to a vote that she told what she was going to do. I think her language was very abrupt, and I think that's what's also caused a lot of this discussion. But they'll get behind closed doors. I've been in these family discussions before, and they'll come out. And if the majority of the conference feels like she cannot lead anymore, you'll see that happen. I think Kevin is trying to cut that off to say, look, we got bigger things to do coming up. We've got to stay together. We may have differences on these things, and they're very real and very frustrating. But if we don't also begin to have a plan, and one member actually said this, they said, we're not sure how we're going to address a Biden White House. The Republicans have got to get their act together to understand that Joe Biden has a radical agenda coming in, and we just saw it presented in this COVID plan, which is more about saving blue states and state economies than it is actually getting our country open and going again. So I think they need to focus on the bigger picture of what's going to happen in the next 100 days and plus.
Yeah, you look at this minimum wage issue as a perfect example of what you were just talking about there. Raising the minimum wage can only hurt these businesses that have been forced to shut down, putting another yoke around their necks as they try to reopen here. What does that have to do with COVID relief?
Well, it goes back to the old saying of the Democrats, especially, never let a good crisis go to waste. And my question here is to a business, is this just, to me, it would be offensive to one of these places that is shut down in New York or New Jersey, another way. You're going to say now, if you do business with the federal government, you got to pay $15. Many of these businesses, are not even open. They couldn't pay their employees if they wanted to, even if they had the contract work to work on. What we have seen work is places like Georgia and Florida. Just yesterday in Georgia, they're presenting a new budget for the state in Georgia, and they're not having to raise taxes and they're not having to make major cuts. Why? Because we've responsibly opened the state back up over time. And the people of Georgia did that. They did it with the direction of the government down here, but the people understand that we have to get back out. Government has to understand that it is not the solution to every problem. And if it becomes a solution, then everybody will think it only has to go to the government, and that's not what America's founded on.
Well, we know the governor, the lieutenant governor, and a lot of other Georgia Republicans do want to talk about their fiscal responsibility instead of the elections.
Exactly.
But we'll save that stuff for a different topic, because I want to talk to you about Congress, too, and again, what we can expect from Joe Biden's agenda and the Democrats as well. You would have to imagine that your blood pressure is a little lower, knowing that you're not going to have to sit on the House Oversight Committee with the new members, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her fellow squad member, Rashida Tlaib, who will both be on that committee. And maybe they're going to start some oversight of the media. If you listen to what AOC was having to say about that, take this up. Do we have the soundbite of AOC here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, she's calling for several members of the media to be reined in. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. I don't think she's talking about MSNBC or CNN. She's probably talking about folks like us. Congressman, what do you think about this?
I just wish she would actually read the Constitution. Just, take some spare time. It's really short. You could do it. Take the First Amendment. Understand that what she is asking for is who's the determiner of what she is wanting the media reined in on. Was it, the determination for her when she has made comments, in the past, about, whether it be about climate change or other things that have been provably, false or issues that's taken up. Does she want that? And then she made a comment maybe a year or so ago, where she said, when she was called on one of her, quote, false statements, she said, everybody's paying too close attention to everything that we say. Sometimes you just speak in generalities. Look, AOC, you can't have it both ways. You either want to muzzle the media to only be a liberal perspective and only agree with you, and then who's going to determine that? I definitely don't want AOC determining what my First Amendment rights are in this country. In fact, it is those rights that she is attacking that should be the fearful part. That's where Republicans all across the country have got to start focusing on. This agenda is creeping in, and they don't care who they go after or what document, especially the Constitution, that they're attacking.
Yeah, well, some conversations perhaps best left to the bar, not recorded on social media and broadcast out for everyone to see. Our last question for you real quick. This special Senate runoff that we just had, that's just for a couple of years now. Raphael Warnock will have to defend that seat in 2 years. Are you going to jump in that race?
We're looking at all options. We're just getting resettled. As you said, the last couple of weeks have been a whirlwind for me, and trying to get back into my family, trying to figure out why I'm at home so much. So we're going to be looking a lot, but we're also going to be talking a lot about whether Republicans need to go in the future. And Raphael Warnock is not what Georgia needs in the future, no matter what happens. And we're going to be making that very clear.
All right, former Congressman